Chill here with Sirius Dallas Moon, Soul Hour. Mars nights, Moon at the end of Libra, Ascended Midheaven ruled by the Malefics, and the Sun almost conjoining Mercury in Pisces, 16 degrees Pisces Mercury, 17 degrees Pisces retrograde. Now, I want to talk about something that um, people that have prominent Uranus placements may identify with. And it's something that proves to be incredibly useful during a world war. Not to people who seek to control all the world, but for the world, yes. There's going to be a little bit of a personal vlog, whatever. Um, when I was born, then ever since I was, ever since I was a little child, I did not listen to my parents because they were my parents. They had to be reasonable. I did not listen to my parents because I feared my parents. In fact, fear causes me to rebel. And to disrespect those who try to use fear tactics on me. So the only way to grow me as a child was to be reasonable with me and loving. And my mother had to explain that to my school. I was suffering a lot at school until my mother had a conversation with the teacher where she said, Shirley is a child that goes like this. You don't need to punish her. Not only do you not need to punish her, it wouldn't work. If she's doing something that's not okay, you need to explain what is not okay and why. And if it's reasonable, you will not have to explain that twice. But it has to be actually not okay. And when teacher understood that and applied that, immediately she was so happy with me. So basically, ever since being a child, I could only respect people who look at me eye level, honor my sovereignty, and speak reasonably without fear tactics and intimidations. People that come at me with fear, I find trying to scare me, I find them trying to project their pressure on me. And now I'm a Taurus. You don't stress a Taurus. Harm a Taurus rest, and you will rest in peace. Or the Taurus will exhaust you so much to explain you how do you undermine yourself when you bother a Taurus rest unjustly, until you yourself will collapse into yourself like the 9/11, and maybe rise as the phoenix from the flame, sovereign enough to not bother a Taurus. Not only that, if they explain to me something that's gaslighting, very usually I don't get it. I don't understand the explanation. This is why I was considered to be quite intelligent, but everybody had complaints about my behavior unless they were sovereign. A free person need not oppress another. And since many people in the world are enslaved, I had a terrible life. I'm not particularly violent as long as my sovereignty is honored. And I'm not particularly vengeful. Even if my sovereignty is violated, I would just be a person that doesn't need to be desensitized to drop the bomb. The bomb. Many of them enough to not disinclude people so that they wouldn't die suffering. Because it's addressing the core raison d'etat of, instead of perpetuating war, putting the deadline to all these perpetual wars. It's massive destruction enough to be considered vile, and it actually addresses the problems and solves that. Now, nobody can say that that's unreasonable if they are not honoring sovereignty, because the most unreasonable thing to do is to deprive people of their sense of self. Jupiter in Cancer is trining Sun and Mercury. Now, this type of personality is very compatible for the spirit of the times, because I don't disrespect anybody, but nobody can require respect from me when they disowned respect in me. I'm not here to oppress anybody. This is also how I easily identify when something is not a liberation. The basest thing called sense of self and sovereignty is a prerequisite requirement for everything for me in my life. It doth expose that which isn't, to be dissolved, which is exactly the spirit of the times. There are Googleplex people like me, and I believe. And we have zero issues with completely putting an end to the suffering of those who do not honor sovereignty. Why is that needed right now? Let's see. Something to do with Mercury about to conjoin the Sun, ruled by Jupiter that's about to turn direct, Venus at the end of Libra, Moon at the end of Libra, sorry, um, Venus in Aries, emphasizing the I am. I guess it's a sort of self-determination declaration thingy. But why? Lilith is squaring the nodes, ruled by that Jupiter. Basically, you know, these times are kind of like, these times are very not compatible with people that are not aligned with sovereignty. In fact, this is a trajectory where people have Aries, people have lost their patience to anything that's not sovereign. Anything that doesn't honor their sovereignty, they've lost their patience for that. In Pisces, there is the gift of grace and so on and so forth. With Aries, something that tries to violate my sovereignty, it has no place in my life. And Aries is a sign of action, self-assertion, self-determination, and logic, logos. Venus is still ruling Uranus next to Beta Persei. So there's something extra rebellious that Venus brings to Aries, that's calling us to liberate from the Beta Persona Medusa Gorgon stories, in the sense that damn fuckery, gaslighting, raping people, enslaving people, blaming people for their rape, all those things, ain't nobody got time for that. And this is also where I addressed the state of Israel having a good trine between Huron and Beta per se. Those who rape or traffic become dead bodies upon dead bodies, all turned into stone. Um, and Al Qaid, which is besiegement. All the while trying to raise awareness to counter the thing that created the situation. The little square here is definitely playing a big part, because sovereignty is breaking away from all those maladaptive ways, and spiritual gaslighting as well. Non-attachment does not replace secure attachment. Identity by tribe or nation does not replace individual identity and human rights, and never will. Now, I'm saying all that and I wonder what's prompting me to say that right now. Because it's almost like an energy reading where people state there I am, Venus, Venus. Now, it's a kind of like I am what I am. The old ways of trying to make people fit to a structure rather than to create structures that accommodate for people is useless, is outdated. It's causing disrespect to any authority figure. It's causing looking at people that try to use fear and scare tactics as, for these people are losers. Sovereign people have sovereignty supportive ideas, sovereignty honoring ideas. People that don't honor sovereignty are basically losers. They try to enslave people and then wonder why those people are not going to be with them, are not going to respect them, are not going to be loyal to them. Countries that rape cannot talk about treason. Countries that don't abolish rape and slavery have sold themselves. Now, there's something to do with waves and the damage to DNA. Now, here is the thing. Let's say, upon shifting orders, shifting regimes, people will have to reestablish the land. I want to talk about the northern part of Israel. They're having a lot of bombs right now, but there were many, many, many years, and there are still fields. I think it's called minefields. At the aftermath of the wars. Minefield, yeah. And um, and this minefield um, was basically an enclosed space because to clear the minefield would be kind of a risk activity. Now, mines do not have, as far as I know, the radiation. I think it's side cobalt. AI Feynman comes into. There's an AI Feynman running around the tube. I wonder sometimes after my death there was going to be an AI SDJ. And what would it say? Um, so basically, when people conquer a city, and in the war with Russia, the Russians had a strategy, um, and this was to make the soil infertile, scorched earth tactic. Now, add something like side cobalt, side cobalt, and that makes real estate investment. um, yeah, that makes real estate investment um, uh, even more challenging. Um, Now, all one really needs to do, if they kidnap a baron, is to put him in housing first in those, they kidnap an energy baron or weapon baron. Now, those things might happen with Pluto in Aquarius, and they can eat breadfruits. Um, because imagine there's another civilization that arises here, and it has to figure which vast, pristine land. I was watching a lot of travel videos to calm myself down. Um, until I couldn't hear the word pristine anymore. And what looks like vast, pristine land is basically radioactive or has radiation of something that quietly ruins the DNA. And by the time that people get to know what it is, they're effectively transhumanized or shapeshifted into radioactive dust. Um, the Russians have some sort of radiation based something supposed to be medicine. And they used, because of all this, if you think about fluoride as a byproduct of the Industrial Revolution, so they used radiation, um, uh, another byproduct, to create and kill cancer cells. Um, According to AI Feynman. Um, so Saturn Neptune marks a time where innovative use of radiation is expected. We know that holistically this type of weapons have a lot to do with the type of rituals that their developers go through and perpetuate. That's it, that's the episode.